Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Histories Uncharted. My name is Shanna, I'm the host, and as always, I am here with my amazing co-host, Cecilia.
Greetings, listeners.
And we are here to kick off with the first of what will be a spooky Halloween series, releasing every week through the month of October. And we're going to start it off with none other than Mr. Spooktacular himself, Vlad Tepes, or better known as Vlad the Impaler.
Or better known as the inspiration to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
He is, when in the 1800s, when Bram Stoker decided to write Dracula, he went into this region of Eastern Europe to find strong characters and fun characters that he could base his characters off of. And this amazing lord, this prince of Wallachia that shocked and awed the world with his extreme form of brutality and displaying of his victims, was too good to resist. So he named his character Dracula, as the main vampire that we all know and love. Dracul is actually like the given and earned name of his dad, Vlad Dracul II, where we are talking about Vlad Tepes. So throughout this podcast, we're going to call Dracul his dad, and then Vlad Tepes we're just going to call Vlad, because they both have the same first name, and we just want to clarify. But Bram Stoker thought that Dracul sounded cooler because it means dragon, so he's the house of the dragon, as opposed to Tepes.
So I think that is actually an interesting little tidbit of history, because when we think of Vlad the Impaler, we think of him as Vlad Dracul. At least I always have.
Yeah, Vlad Dracula. Yeah.
Right. So It's fun to know and understand that Bram kind of just took little bits and pieces of that history and turned it into this flourished story.
It's called artistic license.
Right.
And everyone's allowed to take it, including us. We're going to do the best that we can to make it as factual and fun as we can. So you guys ready to go explore the tale of Vlad the Impaler?
I absolutely am. Let's dig into spooky season.
Here at Histories Uncharted, we are big Halloween fans.
Yes, we are. Spooky season is our favorite season.
So we're really going to make these next few weeks very special. So we hope that you stay tuned and keep listening, because it's going to be lots of fun and spooky. Okay, but back to Vlad. So Vlad Dracul III was the second son of Vlad Dracul II, and he was born around 1430. He had two brothers, one older brother. Y'all know how I just try to say things right, and please forgive me if I'm wrong. So we're going to go with Mercia. His younger brother is Radu, often called Radu the Handsome. Okay, so his dad got the name Dracul, because everyone's like, where does this Dracul thing come from? He got the name Dracul by becoming a member of this Hungarian fraternity that got together because they wanted to overthrow the Ottoman Empire. So it's like the House of the Dragon was earned.
So it wasn't a family name.
No, this is not a family name. This is something he earned or was given to him when he joined this fraternity. You know, I looked not very hard, I'm not going to lie. Anyone can go and dig a little bit deeper and find out what Vlad's dad's name was before Dracul. But we don't. It's Dracul, and that's what we're going with as we move on. All right, so we're going to start with dad, though. Mr. Dracul himself. Okay, so he is a lord of Wallachia, and he has these three sons. And so in March of 1442, the Ottomans invade Transylvania. So all of these lords try to work together to repel the Ottomans. So there's this dude, John Hunyadi. Okay, he's going to be very big. It's a lot of politics back and forth, so everyone keep up, okay? So we've got John Hunyadi.
Lots of Hunyadi in this conversation.
Lots of Hunyadi here. And he's this Transylvanian lord, and him and Dracul side together against the Ottomans to try to kick the Ottomans out. They do not succeed. They are very, very bad at this. Hunyadi escapes to Hungary, not back to Transylvania, to Hungary. And Dracul is summoned by the Ottoman Sultan. So who is Murad II. And all of those of you that have been listening to our podcast from our last episode, Murad II is Mehmed II's dad. Okay?
Mehmed the Conqueror.
Mehmed the Conqueror. The Ares and war dude.
War dude who essentially fell Constantinople.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But right now, everyone's teenagers. Mehmed and Vlad are teenagers, and this is their parents. So Hunyadi escapes to Hungary, and Murad demands that Dracul and his sons show before him to the Ottoman court and show their loyalty. And so he goes, everyone's arrested. Like I said, Vlad's about 14.
All right. So there's a skirmish essentially between the Ottomans and the Transylvanians and the Wallachians.
Yeah. So the Christendom kingdom, this Eastern European various kingdoms are trying to keep the Ottomans out.
Okay.
So they'll side with each other against the Ottomans, but then just for fun, they'll side with the Ottomans against each other and with each other against each other. It's very awesome and complicated and fun. Medieval politics.
Well, but their main enemy is the Ottomans.
Yes.
And they
Murad II.
fight amongst each other a lot.
Yes.
These smaller countries that sometimes ally against the Ottomans.
And the Ottomans almost always win. They're a huge invading force.
Yeah.
They're conquering further and further into Eastern Europe, and they're freaking all the Christians out, and it's a big deal. The Crusades are happening, like it's a big deal.
Right.
So Dracul is summoned to the Ottoman throne. He's arrested. His boys are arrested. Murad says, okay, I will let you, Dracul, go back to Wallachia. You can rule Wallachia under my authority, and I am keeping your two sons, younger sons, with me. So Mercia and Dad go back to Wallachia, and Vlad and Radu are kept at the Ottoman court as hostages, basically. So they're going to live at the Ottoman court, and if Dad messes up, the Sultan is allowed to kill the hostages. So it's a way to keep them in line and loyal.
Absolutely. You're going to for sure be compliant with the man that holds your children.
So this is probably approximately the time that he meets Mehmed II, a person that we spoke about in our last episode. So Mehmed's around 12, and he is in and out of power during this time. He's the prince of the Ottoman Empire, and Vlad is 14.
Right. So Vlad is being kept with Murad in the palace, and during this time, Mehmed is both in and out.
Yeah, like Mehmed's not at the capital, remember? He's like this governor of all of Manzia and all these different places. So I feel like they all sort of travel around the Ottoman Empire. Vlad and Radu are trained as soldiers and in court life and how to administer to the empire and rule people and bureaucratic rules and all of the how to do taxes and how to do accounting and then how to be a soldier and wage war. They're learning all of these things at the Ottoman court, who is at this time one of the most educated and successful empires as they are continuing to go east and conquer Europe.
Absolutely. They're a conglomerate and they are terrifying and really good at war.
And rich. And they love tapestries and gold and jewels and wine and feasts.
Absolutely, the spoils of war.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Okay, so, despite the fact that the Sultan had his sons and he's supposed to be a good boy, Dracul does not stay loyal to the Ottomans. Dun, dun, dun. So he risks his son's life with joining up with Poland and then this Hunyadi guy again, who is now the governor of Hungary. So we have Hungary, Poland, and Wallachia joining together against the Ottomans in an attempt to stop them, right? Once again, they were unsuccessful, but Murad does not punish the boys. He just makes everyone pay tributes and stuff like that. So it's really actually nice that Murad didn't kill the boys or hurt the boys.
Yeah, I find that very strange. At that time, it would seem like such an easy way. He's got two of the boys.
The younger ones.
Just take one.
No, he kept 2. He sent one home.
Well, I mean, I would feel that Murad would, I don't know, maybe he's this super just dude. I don't know. Ottoman Empire, they were kind of rough people. But it just seems strange that he wouldn't do anything to the boys.
As punishment.
Oh,
I think, yeah, totally.
But then also to not have to, like, take out this whole area to show grace, I think would also be a smart thing to do. Because not only is he showing grace to this person as a way to ensure that he maybe continues with compliance.
Yeah, I mean, he's paying you tribute and revolting against you and, getting all riled up. But they won't stop getting all riled up.
I know. So, I mean, but
I would have punished the kids. I'm sorry. If I was Murad. Okay, so.
Does he fall in line? Is this the last that we hear of their uprising against Murad and the Ottomans?
Well, he's forced to pay homage to the Turks. And for some reason, Hunyadi gets really pissed that Dracul is paying homage. He's like, you shouldn't be paying them. And he's like, what am I supposed to do? They have my sons. They told me I have to pay them. So, Hunyadi decides to invade Wallachia. Dracul has sided with Hunyadi time and time again, to his failure.
No, absolutely.
And now Hunyadi has decided to invade Dracul. Like, it's dirty-handed move.
That is really dirty. This dude has time and time again
supported you.
With you.
Yeah.
Anytime you wanted to go against this dude with your kids.
Right. He has your kids and you're still like, it's cool. We'll keep trying this again and again even though we can't succeed. Yeah, or have not yet.
He didn't murder my babies last time. So I guess. All right. So he's paying homage. Hunyadi says, yo, that's lame. I am invading you.
Right. So Hunyadi with a bunch of other Wallachian lords, which also really sucks because he's being stabbed in the back by people that he knows, people that he's worked with, and people that he's trusted. So his Vlad's older brother, Mercia, and his father are murdered. So his father is killed by scalping. And this is a little different than what most Americans are familiar with. So to scalp means to cut off the edges of the face and peel off their skin while they're still alive and conscious. So brother Mercia is blinded with hot iron pokers, and then both of them are buried alive next to each other.
So they're essentially, it's like they're facing. It's like pulling towards their face. That.
So did you ever watch that movie Face Off with John Travolta?
Yeah,
that's what I imagine they're doing. They're slicing along the edges and then they peel it off. And so it's just this skeletal,
oh man,
red bloody
honestly,
mess.
One of the best scenes in that whole entire movie is when it all goes down in the operation room and you see him like through the bloody bandages, taking the drag of the cigarette. Oh, I love that movie. It was probably where I fell in love with Nick Cage. It was a good one.
Me too. That was one of my favorites. I could eat a peach for hours.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no. I know. So that's how poor Dracul died and Mercia. And then they're buried alive next to each other.
Ooh. Like in a box or like in a hole with the dirt, like just filling in your, like, if you were in a box, like I would imagine that it would just last longer. You would just be stuck there. Like, oh God, I couldn't even.
Like how long would it take you to finally die?
How horrific would it be though to just be in an open hole, like just with dirt filled on you and your mouth and like
this open wound of a face. And your eye sockets being burned out. So yeah, the sources don't say if they're buried in boxes or if they're just thrown into holes in the ground, but these are the fun, in-depth questions that we look into here at Histories Uncharted. So
can't even imagine.
So brother and dad are murdered.
Cool.
And they take this dude, it's their cousin. His name is Vladislav II. Vladislav. That's super fun to say.
We're just going to call him Cuz.
Cuz.
From here on out. Cousin. Maybe just cousin.
So the cousin is put on the throne as a puppet to the Hungarian court, to Hunyadi. At this point, Vlad is still a hostage of the Ottoman court. He has been there for 5 years, and he's training, he's learning the Ottoman ways, and he is growing into a young man.
Cool. And so they just took somebody from the family and put them on the, what are they?
They're lords.
They're just lords.
Princes of Wallachia. There is no official king at this time. They're boyars, lords. Yes.
Fair. Cool. So he's put in place as lord over this area.
Picking another family member of Dracul's also gives legitimacy to this move. Like, it's a family member. This is what is supposed to happen. The people don't really revolt too much or ask questions. The lords are supporting it. Hunyadi is supporting it. So.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I'd never really considered that perspective.
And if Hunyadi says this is good, then this is just what people do. So Hunyadi is a lot like Tywin Lannister.
Okay.
He's really, really rich. He's really, really powerful. And you don't do what he says, not always because you want to, but because he told you to.
And that's just what's expected.
And I wonder if that's how Dracul feels, like maybe he is forced to keep siding with Hunyadi, even to his detriment.
Right. I mean, if he, out of all of the little fish, if he is the bigger fish, it makes sense that he would have the most pull. If he had the most resources. I mean, even if it wasn't so much that, but he just talked the better game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people are just like that.
He's rich and powerful. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Rich and powerful, or smart enough to get yourself there.
Yep. All right. So Hunyadi, once again, he joins up with Cuz. He takes Cuz against the Ottomans. He's really trying to stop this Ottoman invasion. So him and cousin go off to fight, which leaves the Wallachian throne technically empty. So Vlad, at this time, he's about 20 years old.
All right.
He grabs a handful of Ottoman soldiers and he goes and claims the Ottoman throne. He goes and claims the Wallachian throne.
All right. So he was like, rumor has it, y'all have abandoned my family home and I'm going to march there with some Ottomans and take it.
Yes.
Back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he sits on the throne for a couple weeks, and I don't want to surprise anyone, but Hunyadi once again is defeated by the Ottomans and is sent home limping, right?
So Hunyadi and cousin come back.
Cousin. Yep, cousin comes back to Wallachia expecting to find his castle and stuff, and he finds his cousin sitting on the throne. And honestly, the cousin outnumbers the small handful of Ottoman soldiers that Vlad has. So Vlad actually has to step down and abandon his throne. And cousin takes it back.
Well, I mean, at least he made his presence known.
I guess. He was 20. He's trying to put it out there,
right.
You know? It's his vision board.
Like, hey, I know what you have done.
Yeah.
And I know that this is mine.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep trying to
and
get what is rightfully mine.
If he vision boards like Murad.
Right? Maybe that's where he learned it.
You know?
Because he did learn this at the Ottoman court.
Right.
For the next, 8 years, we're just going to say he's off vision boarding because we know absolutely nothing else about what he is doing. He just sort of goes to Moldavia and he's living his best life. He's still very loyal to the Ottoman Empire.
For the next 8 years, what is our time frame here? Where are we in the timeline of what's happening around the empire right now during these 8 years?
So the 8 years that he disappears are 1448 to 1456. So what's going on in this period? 1451. Mehmed is made sultan for the second time because we all know he comes on and off the throne.
Right.
And this is his final, Murad has died and Mehmed takes the throne officially.
Right.
And so 2 years later in 1453, Mehmed takes down Constantinople. Vlad is still living somewhere in the Ottoman Empire, living his best life. So that's kind of what happened during these 8 years.
All right. So we know that Constantinople, 1453. So like 3 years later.
Yep, 1456.
Is when we start to pick up on Vlad
again. Mm-hmm. So he's around 28. He returns to Wallachia. You're never going to guess who he's with.
Who?
Mr. Hunyadi.
What?
I know. And Hunyadi backstabs cousin, overthrows cousin. They murder him together, and then they put Vlad on the throne of Wallachia under the guidance of Hunyadi.
What did cousin do?
No one knows, but maybe Vlad made a better bargain. Hey, you remove my cousin, put me on the throne, and I will do more for you than he does. I earn it more. I deserve it more. It's my rightful throne. Right? Who knows?
We don't know, but Vlad definitely weaseled his way. I mean, I guess he would see Hunyadi as his key to getting his home back.
Hunyadi's also the man that murdered his dad and brother. This is a complicated relationship.
I could imagine that. But if anybody was going to put him back, it would have to be Hunyadi. If he's that big of a force, it makes sense why you would go against the man who murdered your family and took your family home so that you could get it back.
It's rough decisions that you got to make. What's more important? Your family, your throne?
Well, I mean, his family,
your destiny,
his throne.
Yeah, that is his,
I would see that was obviously on his vision board. And he got it back. It makes sense to me that he would align with Hunyadi, I guess is where I'm trying to go.
Yeah. Even though you have to bite the bullet and side with someone you don't want to get your goals achieved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he gets home back. What's going on with home? Well,
the first thing he does is he reaches out to all of the neighbors and says, yo, if you support me, I'll support you just in case the Ottomans invade. So he's trying to get allies in the territories that are closest to his borders so that they could be more of a unified force. Okay, so something else that's going on, kind of need to step back and look at the world at this time period and the throne and the country that he steps into, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so about 40 years ago, under the reign of his grandfather, 1418, right? Okay, there is, since this time, his grandpa was sort of a steady ruler, but since he went down, and for the past 40 years, there's been lots of civil unrest. There's been lots of unstable governments. They keep switching sides. They keep stabbing each other in the back. This is not good for agricultural production. A lot of crime is running around the country. There's no one there to punish the criminals. People are doing whatever they want. There is no more trade because there is no protection of the trade routes or securing of prices and things like this that are needed to really have a successful empire and city and infrastructure and administration of a place to live.
So he inherits a hot heckin' mess.
Yes.
For the last 40 years, the Ottomans have been at their throats, and everybody in the surrounding areas has just been struggling.
Exactly.
The economy
tanked.
Is crap.
Yeah, a lot of peasants, a lot of poorness. So he really has to crack down. He's got to crack down on crime. He's got to establish trade. He's got to have a stable income and loyal troops to continue this battle against the Ottomans. And you can't do that if you've got ragamuffin shenanigans going on in your country.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If you're constantly being invaded, if you're constantly at the throat of the person who lives next to you, the kingdom that is next to you, and you guys aren't coming together.
No stability.
There's no stability.
Yeah.
You can't get anywhere. I am sure that Vlad sees this as the biggest threat to his countrymen, to
internal threats. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This internal threat is what is going to do us in. It is not just the Ottomans. In fact, we have no defense.
Yes.
Against them, which I find really interesting. I mean, he spent so much time with them and was essentially sent off to the Ottomans
as a hostage.
Was he receiving an education?
Yes. So he was taught as a soldier. He was taught how to fight. Like we said, he went over how to administer to a empire, and books and accounting, all the things. Yes, he was taught by the best. He inherits this hot mess of a country, and the first thing that he does is he decides to invite every single lord that had participated in the backstabbing and murder of his brother and his father, and any single lord that he thought might present a challenge to his authority or some sort of inconvenience. And he invited every single one of them and their families to dress up to this amazing banquet on Easter.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of them show up in their best outfits, and they sit on this beautiful table that's laden with all these food and stuff like that. Yeah. And then right in the middle of the banquet, he has every single person at the table arrested. He makes every single one of them stand up, and the old and elderly and infirm are instantly murdered on the spot and executed on the spot. Everybody else, male, female, children, in their Sunday Easter finest, hike miles and miles to Vlad's castle, where he forces them to rebuild and repair his castle until they literally drop dead.
That is one fucking grudge. Is all I gotta say. Arrested, executed.
Forced labor camp. Repairing his castle. So this is the message that he is sending to everybody that participated in the murder of his family. Yeah. Like, if you're going to be a Wallachian lord, you're going to be loyal to everybody. Like, this wishy-washy junk is not tolerated. We are Wallachian. We stand together. We need a strong infrastructure. And nobody really batted an eye, because what he then did is he took all the lands and the wealth from all of these lords, and he promoted a lot of peasantry class to these suddenly vacant positions. He gave the wealth to them. He freed a bunch of slaves. He basically improved the living status of a lot of the lower class citizens.
In Wallachia,
yes. His people.
So for his people.
But that's not enough, right? So he promoted a bunch of poor people, peasant people, great, but there's still a lot of crime. How are you going to do this if you don't have like a police force and stuff? So what he does in the first years of his reign is he goes on a bloody spree, establishing a legend of fear and terror.
Do tell.
Okay. So it is unclear on where he learned how to impale or why it was his favorite, but he sure did master this horrific form of execution. I think it's most likely for shock value. He really wanted to prevent further attacks by making the enemy too afraid to come after him, or to make the punishment so harsh that his subjects would just follow the laws.
That makes a lot of sense to me, especially considering how weak he would have seen Mehmed appear amongst, this would be a peer for him.
Right.
And he knows of the story of Mehmed, the dirty rumors that were talked about with him being seen as weak and not capable of keeping his house in order.
Growing up. At this point, though, he has conquered Constantinople. That did earn him some points.
Yes. So he then sees this example of Mehmed becoming the conqueror and really coming into his own. So I find that similar parallel. What does impaling a person really mean?
Okay. So first they make a stake make sure not to make it too sharp so that the death is nice and slow. You did not want the person dying of shock, right? And then they had their legs tied to horses while the stake was slowly forced into the person's body. Normally, the stake was inserted up through the anus and forced through the body until it came out the mouth. Oh. But there were several instances where they were pierced through other organs, and then sometimes they were left hanging upside down as they died slowly.
Upside down?
So you complete the impalement, and then you untie them from the horses or whatever, and you take the whole contraption, and you flip it upside down. So he's still impaled, but he's hanging upside down. Right?
No, I'm not all right. That's not all right, Shanna, no. No, that's not all right.
So that is what it means to be impaled, and he became Vlad the Impaler because this was his favorite form of punishment and display of public authority.
Right, establishing dominance.
Yeah.
He would come to town and impale your people.
No, that's not to say that Vlad was like a terrible guy, because he was very concerned with morals and honesty, chastity, virtues were very important to him. And so sometimes the worst punishments that were given out to some people were those that offended those morals. Oh, cheating, okay. Lying, he really appreciated good moral chastity and virtue.
So if you were a behavior, you were likely good. But if you were a naughty person, then you would incite the wrath of Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah. And I'm not real sure if he got this at the Ottoman court or not, because Muslims are very conservative, in particular with their women and how women dressed. And during this time in Eastern Europe, if you were not Muslim, you were Christian.
Right.
And so sometimes the Christians didn't always have the tightest of morals. So he's seeing a lot of adultery. He's seeing a lot of women talking back to their men. He's seeing a lot of disobedience. And, that can't be tolerated. It's never tolerated when a woman talks back. So a lot of the things he does are prisoners and soldiers, but then women.
And then women.
Yeah, those are his main victims. So one example is there was an adulterous wife. Her punishment was that she had her breasts cut off, and then she was skinned alive and then impaled. She was then displayed in the city center, and her skin was set on a table near her body.
Oh, wow. She was Oh.
So cheating women were often impaled by red-hot pokers that were shoved into their vaginas, and they often had their breasts removed. He did not appreciate cheating.
So these were women who...
The men had accused them of having affairs.
Cool. So they were accused of having affairs. That's good enough. And then so they were put to death by torture of their lady parts, essentially.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot like the eye for an eye thing. It's like you always got punished in the part of you that made the offense. That was a big medieval thing. You steal, you get your hand cut off. You lie, you get your tongue removed. Things like that was common. So she cheated, so she lost what made her a woman.
But not dead.
I don't know.
Were often impaled with red hot pokers in their vaginas and then had their breasts removed. I mean, if you were survived, it's probably likely that they did perish.
Most of the time you perish from exactly the wounds, secondary infections and things like that.
That makes sense. Okay, so... Got anything else?
Yeah, it's not just cheating women. He doesn't like cheating in the marketplace either. Like, trade is important to him. Fair trade is important to him. And there was this whole scuffle between Wallachia and these Saxon merchants. If you want to go figure out the scuffle, go Google it. It's lots of fun interestingness. But Vlad responded with impaling 600 merchants in the marketplace just to make sure that they didn't do it again.
Right. Well,
as an example.
It's a form of clearing out the problem.
Yeah.
As well. And then who takes the place but the people who were suffering from that said problem. So your hopes are that would right itself. I do not agree with the man's methods.
Well, I mean, if that was extreme, I mean, that was a lot of merchants, but it wasn't good enough. Like, the Saxons had to be shown, you don't do this to Vlad. So he went back to Wallachia, not in Saxon territory in different countries. He went to his own country and found 300 young Saxon boys, just randoms, not involved with any of this. If you were a Saxon young boy, he took you from your village and he impaled some and burned the rest.
As a form of retaliation to... So these are people that weren't even involved.
Right.
But so is it the Saxons and him like bordering and they are coming into his land?
Yeah.
So these are...
It's just like, I want to say like a race of people. It's a group of people, from Saxony, and they travel, people live in different areas in Transylvania and Wallachia, depending on if you're Christian or Ottoman, Muslim, like all these different people living together. And so this group of Saxons had this conflict with the trade, and this was how he responded.
And he's like, if you dare think that you're going to do this in my own country,
right,
think again.
Yeah, and no one else is ever going to do this to me again because they saw what I did to you. Ugh. How else do you protect your people? You don't have a huge army. You're not the biggest kid on the block. You need to protect what you have. How else are you going to? But without big displays of authority, of and strength
and
power,
gore.
I will do this to you too if you push me. What would you do to keep your country safe?
It was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
So it is told, all of these are rumors you never really knew. It's because it's all about building up the rumor and the reputation of him, right? And was this made in contemporary times with Vlad or hundreds of years later, especially when like the vampire, phenomena kicks in and all of these stories change and modify to fit modern interests and desires. Right. So he apparently liked to dine while surrounded by impaled Turks and watch them writhe in agony. Sometimes he would order the skin from their feet removed, and then their feet covered in salt, and then goats were brought in to lick the salt off.
Like, where do you get that?
Right?
Where do you get that?
It's very interesting.
That is an interesting way.
I don't think that would feel good.
I would say creativity points.
Is it him being creative or storytellers hundreds of years later? Who knows? But it's a fun tidbit.
It is a fun tidbit.
So another fun tidbit, he had a huge cauldron built that had a lid with holes in the top. He would put the prisoner in the cauldron, close the lid, and then their heads would be sticking out. Then he would set a fire underneath it. The person would slowly be boiled alive.
So that you could see the terror and horror in their eyes.
Talk to him.
Witness. Mm-hmm. Man, this guy's obviously raised by the Ottomans.
Not until he was 14. First 14 years was in Wallachia.
True. That is true. Which makes a lot of sense why he is so concerned with his own countrymen and his own. He did. He spent his first formative years. His first 14 years of life. This is
at the Wallachian court.
This is his home. Mm-hmm. While Ottomans are trying to take it all away.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So one day, cleaning up the streets, setting a good example for his country, he takes all of the beggars and he's like, come on, there's going to be a huge banquet in this big building. Every single beggar, please come into this building. We're going to feed you. And then when they all get in there, he locks the doors and he sets the building on fire. And then poof, the town is clean of all of the beggars. It's very convenient.
So I see the problem, but again, do not agree with the solution.
He's a go-getter.
He is a go-getter. I mean, like, honestly, I bet if he had money and resources, you know, and a conscience, maybe we could make real changes.
I don't know. You know, I feel like he was an equal opportunity torturer, provider of ways to die. Okay, so he liked to impale babies to the chests of their mothers and often forced children to eat the flesh of their mothers.
So giving.
Again, is this true? Is this part of the vampiric craze? You know, eating the flesh of people and stuff. He's never really been accused of being a cannibal. Forcing someone else to eat the flesh. That's very reminiscent of Bathory. She was also accused of forcing them to eat their own flesh. So that's Vlad. He's running his country. He's killing naughty people. He's cleaning the streets. He's doing what he needs to do. Right?
These details may be flourished, but
who knows?
We wouldn't be surprised if people were impaled while their arms were spread by horses.
lots of impaling going on. Okay, so 1456, Hunyadi. He dies finally.
What?
Yes. So Vlad has been an ally and loyal to Hunyadi this whole time, and all of a sudden, Hunyadi's son turns into a little bitch and says, I don't really like you, I don't trust you, and he turns against Vlad. So what does Vlad do?
Well, I mean, he did see everything that Vlad had done to the people.
Right, his own people.
Who were in on it. And,
yeah, and the Saxons.
was the one who was kind of like the spearheader of this.
Right.
I was going to ask, like, what did Hunyadi think of?
You never know what his thoughts. I guess I could probably look at his research and see his perspective of what was going on with Vlad.
I can see that maybe Hunyadi, in that bringing Vlad back into the fold, that Hunyadi would be like,
there's a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I wonder if he was like in on it, cool with it, not. I mean, such is history. If it's not explicitly written about, we don't know. We only get to question. We only get to wonder.
Yeah.
But so 56, Hunyadi dies.
He does, and then his son takes over,
and then accuses Vlad. He's like, yo,
we don't trust you. And so Vlad retaliates by starting to attack small villages in Transylvania and Hungary, which pisses off Hunyadi's son, who just happens to be the king of Hungary in 1458. He is crowned the king of Hungary, so he starts getting, fighting with him for a couple years.
So his dad dies, and within 2 years,
he becomes king.
Crowned king of Hungary. Mm-hmm. Sweet. So he is pissed off.
The king, basically. Yes. So at this time, he's cleaning up the streets, he's pissing off the king of Hungary, and he's still paying the Ottomans tribute. And he's like, I am establishing myself, and I'm not going to pay anymore. Okay? So now he does what? He goes to the king of Hungary and says, I think we should side against Mehmed and the Ottomans. Mehmed gets through the spy network, they're
everywhere, yeah,
gets a hold of this information, and so he sends ambassadors to Vlad's court, and basically they're like, so, like, Mehmed's cool with you and you're cool with us, and why don't you just say that it's fine and you're not going to cause any more trouble and just pay your tribute and we'll leave and everything will be fine. And Vlad responds by looking at these ambassadors and tells them it is very disrespectful for them to not remove their hats, their turbans, while in the court of Wallachia. So that doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal, but Vlad was raised at the Ottoman court.
Right.
And they are Muslim.
Correct. Head coverings, incredibly important.
Correct, especially in medieval
sin against God.
Yes. The men have these beautiful turbans that they keep on them, especially when they are visiting a foreign court. Like, this is official dress for them.
Right.
They do not remove them. It's against their religion, and it's offensive to ask them to remove them.
Vlad is a naughty, naughty boy.
And he knows this.
Oh, yes, he does.
And he says, you remove them in front of me in my court, or you're disrespecting me. And they said, no, we cannot remove them, as you know. And so what does Vlad do?
Right.
Very well. You will never take them off again. And he takes these stakes, and he stakes the turbans into their skulls and impales their heads.
Which is
basically,
this is seen as a major offense because these are protected people,
ambassadors, embassy, yes,
and it would be an honorable thing to not harm these people.
Right, you never kill the messenger. That's the
Right.
phrase. You don't kill the messenger.
And also, these people are coming to Vlad, who was, spent a lot of time in the Ottoman culture and must know that this is seen as a sign of disrespect.
Yes.
And must know that you must be kidding, you must be joking.
Right.
How could you be serious?
He probably even knew these ambassadors, and they're like, Vlad, what are you saying? You know I can't take this off. Why are you saying this to me?
A fly on the wall.
I know, right?
During that moment, it must have been so tense and very dramatic. I could see this being like action
drama
or something.
And then he hammers these stakes through the top of the head, permanently putting these turbans into them, and he sends them back to Sultan Mehmed with his answer
as the ultimate offense.
Yeah,
that's just down and dirty.
Okay, so what happens next is a little complicated, okay, but it's really funny. If you can keep up, if I can explain this right.
Try and keep up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Mehmed hears about this, and he's like, damn it. So he summons Vlad. Vlad, you need to come to Constantinople, and you need to account for what you have done, and you need to pay tribute. So he is demanding Vlad to go to Constantinople. And Vlad says, cool, I go. Because when you're summoned, you have to go.
Right.
Okay. So Mehmed decides to double cross him, and he sets up a trap. So before he even gets to Constantinople, he sets this trap for these dudes to attack him and to kill him.
To attack Vlad.
To attack Vlad and his friends and his party, his retinue, and to kill them all. Because he's pissed him off.
Because his band is on the way. They intercept.
Right. They intercept Vlad on the way to Constantinople to kill them. But Vlad finds out. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my gosh.
He triple crosses. He catches the people that were hired to kill him, and he impales them instead.
Oh my.
As you do.
As Vlad does. Obvious.
So he does not continue on to Constantinople at this point. He's like, okay, I see you, right? I see you. So what does he do? What else would you do? Would you begin an extremely bloody campaign against the Ottomans, and you just go up and down the rivers and the countrysides, massacring any Turkish citizen that you see? It is thought that he has killed approximately 23,000 Turkish citizens in this very small period of time. He attacks the villages. He's burning them to the ground. Most of them are women and children and elderly. He impales them all in these huge fields of horror for the Ottomans to find.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's how you do it. You take out their citizens. You take out their gardens. You take out their livestock. You take out their workhorses.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that really, this is Mehmed the Conqueror we're talking about.
He's still young. I don't think he's conqueror yet, but he has definitely showed his strength with Constantinople, right. And now he is pissed.
And his mantra is I exist. So how does he do this?
The only way that Mehmed could do this, and he throws an astonishing 150,000 soldiers, rivaling only the conquest of Constantinople.
So he sends mostly Paris.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah. Towards Vlad.
Yeah. To squash Vlad. And then his intentions are to put Radu, Vlad's younger brother, on the throne. So Radu has stayed in the Ottoman Empire with Mehmed and has raised in the ranks with them, and so he is going to be put on the throne, and Vlad is going to be removed.
Oh, okay. All right.
So Vlad, obviously, is very outnumbered.
Mm.
And so he starts to flee. He leaves. He's down at the most southern extents of Eastern Europe as he's attacking along the borders. And so now he's got to try to get back home.
Okay.
Before Mehmed. So Mehmed's heading this way with thousands and thousands of soldiers. He's got to try to get home. He's got to try to figure out what he can do. And so as he's moving back to his castle in Wallachia, he employs a scorched earth policy and just kills thousands in his wake.
So what is a scorched earth?
So
Policy.
an army moves on its stomach, and with like beasts of burdens and horses and cows pulling carts, and they have to eat hay and straw, and if you burn all of the fields, there's no vegetables to eat, there's no grass for the horses, they have to slaughter their animals, they start to go hungry, there's no refuge for them to sleep in, there's no fresh water as they're crossing the countryside. So they're running out of, Mehmed's army is running out of resources.
Because as Vlad, he is moving through, consuming all, and leaving nothing behind him.
For the soldiers to use as refills to resupply their supplies that they're using.
Because that is your job, is to plunder and pillage all of these small villages along the way to help restock. Refeed and refuel.
Yeah.
All right.
So Vlad's got a really small little group of soldiers, and they employ really fun guerrilla warfare tactics. And keep in mind, he's also been raised with the Ottoman Empire. We've said that at least 1 million times. So this means he speaks Turkish. He knows what their uniforms look like. So one night he decides to sneak into the Ottoman camp and just walks right in. They're dressed as Ottoman soldiers, and he speaks Turkish, and hi, how are you? And yeah, good. And he just walks in, and then they try to find Mehmed's tent so they can assassinate him in the night.
Oh.
Yeah, end it right now.
Right.
Kill Mehmed.
Okay. Well, I mean, do they?
No.
No.
They get the wrong tent.
Ah!
And they assassinate all of Mehmed's top generals, but not Mehmed. He escapes.
Failure.
Yeah.
Vlad, you were so close.
So Vlad runs back off into the woods. Mehmed yet again is super pissed. And so Mehmed continues to follow Vlad across the countryside. He reaches the capital city, and he finds the city gates are completely open. There's no defenders. He doesn't see anybody. He keeps walking further and further into this empty town until on the edges of town, him and his soldiers discover this huge field of 20,000 Bulgarians and Turkish prisoners impaled, of rows that went on for what seemed forever. And there in front, impaled on the highest stake, was Mehmed's main general for all to see.
Oh.
It was this huge field. They couldn't see the end of it. If you stood at one end, you couldn't see the other end for all of the dead, impaled. Some of them still alive, writhing, dying slowly.
I was just going to ask, like, that's 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they were that far off from each other. So they must have...
Probably...
There must have been some that were still alive.
Yeah. So the first ones were probably dead, but the last ones probably weren't.
It just boggles my mind. So much death, so much gore.
You imagine being one of the last ones, and you have watched this for hours. Days. It took days.
Like, I don't even know how you get it in the body. Like, I imagine that it's a lot like a game of cricket. I know that sounds so jovial,
they're laying down,
so
and their legs are being held like this. So you're laying down,
and then like the horses are pulling them in. Like,
no, they're holding them while you are forcing it in like this. Most often they are laying face down over a rock or a table to expose the backside, and they're being held like this, and then you are forcing a stick in. our bodies are very
squish.
And don't provide a lot of resistance. We hope you enjoy our spooky rendition of how to impale here on Histories Uncharted.
We're here to unsettle.
I do enjoy making people uncomfortable. This might make others uncomfortable. So Vlad is rushing to his castle. Mehmed is rushing to Vlad's castle. Messengers reach Vlad's castle and warn his family. He has a wife and all of the people that live there. The Ottomans are coming, and it's a really close tie, but the Ottomans are probably going to get there before Vlad. So his wife decides that she would rather throw herself from the tallest tower than be captured by the Turks. So to this day, the tributary underneath the castle is still called the Ladies' River. And she was supposedly an illegitimate daughter of, you guessed it, Mr. Hunyadi.
Well, that makes sense. He had his little fingers and all of that. He was kind of like the mob man, you know?
Yeah, Vlad probably married her to solidify the alliance between him and Hunyadi when he put him on the Wallachian throne.
Right. Well, and I just find that so interesting. So do you think that this is a after the fact tidbit, or do you think that this probably really happened? I mean, with the place being called the Ladies' River, it seems like this was something that...
There's a lot of folklore about Vlad, Dracula, Dracul, whatever. But Vlad Tepes was a real man, and he did this, and he was married to a real woman who did not want to be victimized and murdered by the Ottoman Turks.
And we know, like, women would throw themselves into wells.
Yes, women would commonly stab themselves to prevent themselves from being prisoners.
Right.
Yeah, Constantinople, we read they were throwing themselves off of towers into wells so they wouldn't be.
And I'm sure it's not just the Ottomans, but this was the way of war.
Right.
If that,
do you want to be captured?
You were either captured and turned into a slave and
raped repeatedly
and
sold
and
yeah, you're just property.
Horrific things would happen to you. So I mean, it makes sense. It's one of the most heartbreaking scenes in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
What?
When Winona Ryder flings herself off of the tower in her red dress.
Yeah.
It was an emotional scene. It was very vivid. It got me at a young age. It was very...
He might have gotten that from Vlad's first wife.
Right.
You never know. So Mehmed makes it to the castle first. Vlad is officially dethroned. Radu is officially put on the throne. And a whole bunch of boyars and lords side with Radu. And it could be because they're really tired of Vlad's very brutal tactics.
Right.
Maybe they're tired of not being able to cheat the peasantry anymore, and that kind of sucks. Maybe they want to, be naughty again. Maybe they just want to stay on the good side of the Ottomans. It's not really clear. But at this point, he is really... dethroned.
Okay.
He is 36. He has lost everything. His soldiers, his castle, his wife, his throne. Where does he go but to Hungary, to his allies that have always been there, murdering his family and backstabbing him. And they do what they do best, and they promptly imprison him.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And he is then held for 14 years as a prisoner at the Hungarian court from 1462 to 1475.
You just got to hang out in prison.
I don't think it was very prison-y because sometime during this time he ends up marrying a cousin of the king.
So you mean like you get to stay in my castle and never leave again?
Yeah, I think maybe he was a hostage again.
Okay.
But not like to keep someone in check, to keep him in check.
Not like imprisoned like the man in the Iron Mask.
Right, he's not in a dungeon.
Okay.
I mean, he's marrying the king's daughter.
Yeah.
Or cousin. Okay, so apparently, and I just had to throw this because I thought this was just the funnest little tidbit. You don't know much about women around this time. But for her to marry Vlad, this is his second marriage because his first wife jumped off a tower.
Right.
Right. This is also her second marriage. So, okay, it's the king's cousin. It's a good alliance. We'll do this even if it's a second marriage. But then she goes on after that to marry 2 more times for a total of 4 husbands. All of them die before her. I just find that really interesting. It's fun.
Nice job, girl.
Yeah. So during this time that he is in jail, getting married, his brother dies on the throne, and this other dude is put in his place. Oh, here we go again. I'm sorry with the names. Basarab Leota? Let's stick with that. Basarab Leota. I'm sure that's wrong, and my apologies to everyone. B-Rab. So B became the Lord of Wallachia, and surprise, surprise, he sided with the Turks too. So now the King of Hungary really needs to stop the Ottoman Empire. He releases Vlad from his prison of marriage and comfort. We're not really sure what's going on with him there.
It must have been horrible.
Yes. He just calls him the Prince of Wallachia. And about this time, he's now around 50.
All right, so they put him back.
You know, how much of his life is spent in prison? He's got 14 years in Hungary, and he's got his formative years in the Ottoman Empire. Like, half this dude's life he's spent as a prisoner in someone else's court.
Right, just, well, a hostage.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Can you leave? I mean, you get married. Can you leave? Do you travel?
Yeah, he's like the Sansa Stark. He's just held.
Looking pretty.
Horrible things, and now his brain's a little messed. And
I like it. I like it. A lot of Game of Thrones references today. Yeah. It's very apt. Very apt. Okay. This is sort of fun. It's a callback to the Bathories. So this is 200 years before Elizabeth Bathory, because we're now in 1475. And the Hungarian king wants the Ottomans gone. We need to get Vlad back on the throne. They reach out to this dude named Stephen Bathory V, right? So this is a cousin or relative to Bathory, because don't forget that she has a Stephen VIII.
He did really messed up.
He's the one that killed the peasants and executed people in front of her when she was really young. Yeah.
Scarred her for life.
Yeah, so that's Stephen VIII.
Those Stephen Bathories.
Yeah, but Stephen V helped Vlad get his throne. So there's your connection between Dracula and Bathory.
And Mehmed.
And Mehmed.
And the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like a full circle.
We're all connected in one way or another in history. That's why I love history, how it's all connected and the human levels. I just love it.
Heck yeah.
That's why we're here with you folks to share this with you.
What I love about this the most is how we just kind of put our thoughts and feelings into what it might have looked like to be in the room during those moments.
Right.
I really enjoy that. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun to pick it apart.
Okay.
All right.
So B's dethroned. Bathory helps Vlad kick butt. Vlad holds the throne for 2 years. But then, after 2 years, B comes back with the Ottoman troops. He is super, super, super outnumbered. There's no way that he can defend himself. He has small amounts of soldiers. He has about 2,000 soldiers with him. And in January 1477, at approximately the age of 52, Vlad and all of his soldiers are massacred.
That's messed up.
Yeah, there's a couple.
That's a sad end.
It is a sad end. There's a couple different stories about it. Some people say that a Turkish soldier snuck into his camp and assassinated him. Others say that his own soldiers thought that he was a Turkish soldier and they murdered him. But what definitely happened is the Ottomans cut his body into pieces. They sent his heart to Mehmed, who mounted it on a stake on the walls of Constantinople. His head went on a tour around Wallachia as a reminder to those that opposed the Ottomans. And then they threw his body into a swamp, which was discovered by some monks who secreted it away and they buried it. Okay, so they thought that this was his grave until they excavated it in 1933, but all they found were lots of different bones of different people and stuff like that. So they've never really found the resting place of Vlad the Impaler.
That's kind of the saddest thing ever. But feeds into that whole vampire mythos. With
right.
No body.
No body.
That's very interesting.
So the very last bit of information I have here about our dear, dear Vlad the Impaler is just maybe some interesting facts about his physical appearance.
Okay.
So it is said that Vlad was not very tall, but very stocky and strong, with a cold and terrible appearance, a strong and aquiline nose, swollen nostrils, a thin and reddish face in which the very long eyelashes framed large, wide-open green eyes. The bushy black eyebrows made them appear threatening. His face and chin were shaven but for a mustache. The swollen temples increased the bulk of his head. A bull's neck connected with his head, from which black curly locks hung on his wide-shouldered person. Well, Cecilia, I think that about wraps up everything I have to say about Vlad Tepes, Mr. Impaler, if you're nasty. And it was really, really fun to start off our spooky Halloween season with him.
I agree. Vlad the Impaler was a fun and gruesome subject to start our spooky season.
Yes, so I want everyone to please stay tuned. We have lots other really cool things coming up in our next few episodes. So hopefully you stay tuned and enjoy them as much as we enjoy making them for you. So thanks. Have a wonderful day and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Hey there, everyone. We just wanted to take a minute to thank you for listening to us here at Histories Uncharted. We know you have lots of options to listen to, and we are super grateful you chose to share this hour with us. As a brand new podcast, it takes a lot to get started in the beginning. So if you could please rate us, follow us, leave a comment, or share our podcast with someone you think would like to hear a cool story. Do one or all three, but whatever you do, we would love to hear from you.